Good evening. Tonight we're tracking a seismic shift in global trade. 7 major economies are redirecting key trade agreements from the United States to Canada. This isn't a minor policy tweak, it's a fundamental realignment with billions of dollars and millions of jobs at stake. Germany, Japan, South Korea, India, Brazil, Australia, and the United Kingdom have all announced plans to prioritize trade with Ottawa, citing frustration with Washington's new protectionist stance. The move is a direct response to the controversial Fair Trade First Act passed last month in the U.S. Analysts are calling this the Great North American Trade Diversion, a challenge to America's long-held dominance in global commerce. Tonight, we break down how we got here, who's involved, and what this means for the future of American and Canadian economies. The ground is shifting. Let's uncover what happens next. To truly understand today's headlines, it's important to look back and see how we got here. The story of US-Canada trade is one of deep ties, evolving agreements, and shifting priorities. Context is everything when it comes to international economics. For generations, the United States and Canada have been more than just neighbors. They've been economic partners, building one of the world's most integrated trading relationships. This partnership was formalized through landmark agreements like NAFTA in the 1990s, and later the USMCA, which updated the rules for a new era. Every single day, billions of dollars in goods and services cross the world's longest undefended border. American automakers rely on Canadian-made parts, while Canadian farmers and energy producers send their products south. The flow goes both ways. Fuel, food, cars, and technology all move seamlessly, supporting millions of jobs on both sides. This close partnership has thrived on a foundation of stability, shared values, and mutual trust. But it hasn't always been smooth sailing. Disputes have flared up over the years, sometimes over softwood lumber, sometimes over dairy quotas, and at other times over steel and aluminum tariffs. Each disagreement has tested the resilience of the relationship, but both countries have usually found ways to compromise and move forward. Political changes in Washington have often brought new uncertainty. The recent highly publicized renegotiation of NAFTA into the USMCA was a reminder that even the closest allies can face tough negotiations and shifting priorities. While all eyes were on North America, Canada was quietly expanding its reach, forging new trade agreements with Europe like CETA, to diversify its economic partnerships and reduce reliance on a single market. At the same time, Canada strengthened its ties with Pacific nations, joining agreements like the CPTPP and presenting itself as a stable, rules-based partner in a world of growing uncertainty. As the US adopted more protectionist policies and turned inward, Canada's reputation as a reliable and open trading partner made it increasingly attractive to countries and investors seeking stability and predictability. All of this groundwork, years of negotiation, adaptation, and relationship building has set the stage for today's dramatic pivot in North American trade. The US-Canada trade story stands at a crossroads with both nations facing choices that will shape their economic futures for decades to come. The world is watching closely to see which path North America will choose, knowing that the decisions made here will ripple across the global economy. The announcements came fast and coordinated, sending shockwaves through the global economic community. In a matter of days, a series of high-profile press conferences and official statements made it clear, a major realignment was underway. Germany, Japan, South Korea, India, Brazil, Australia, and the UK all declared a strategic shift toward Canada, citing a growing loss of confidence in the US as a reliable partner. These countries, representing a significant portion of global trade, emphasized that their decisions were not made lightly, but were necessary to protect their long-term interests. South Korea and Japan specifically pointed to the impact of new US tariffs and the resulting uncertainty in global supply chains. For Brazil, the tipping point was agricultural instability, as shifting US policies threatened their exports and food security. Germany, meanwhile, is doubling down on green hydrogen and critical minerals, forging new partnerships with Canada to secure the resources needed for its energy transition and future industries. At the same time, Japan and South Korea are moving significant parts of their technology and semiconductor supply chains north, seeking the predictability and security that Canada now offers. India, which had long stalled on a comprehensive economic partnership, is now fast-tracking negotiations with Canada, eager to tap into new opportunities and reduce its dependence on the US market. The catalyst for this dramatic shift? The Fair Trade First Act, recently passed by the US Congress. which imposed sweeping, unpredictable tariffs and introduced new fairness metrics that many saw as arbitrary and destabilizing. As one UK official summed it up at a press conference, "We can't build our future on shifting political whims. Canada offers the stability and predictability that our businesses and citizens need to thrive." Analysts estimate that over $200 billion in trade could move from the US to Canada in the next 5 years, reshaping the economic landscape of North America and beyond. The message from these global players is clear. In today's world, reliability and trust matter more than sheer market size. For many, Canada is now the partner of choice. What is the Fair Trade First Act, and why did it spark this exodus? Signed in August, the law gives the U.S. Commerce Department broad powers to impose tariffs on countries deemed unfair, based on vague criteria from labor standards to tax rates. Section 204 even allows tariffs on components within finished products, creating chaos for global supply chains. The White House defends the law as protecting American workers and exporting U.S. values. But critics, including U.S. multinationals and the Chamber of Commerce, warned it would isolate America and trigger retaliation. Today's coordinated move by 7 major economies proves those warnings were prophetic. Instead of forcing change abroad, the act pushed allies to look elsewhere. The catalyst for this trade shakeup was not foreign policy, but a domestic miscalculation. The world responded by moving on. The U.S. now faces the consequences of its own legislation. The economic impact was swift. The Dow plunged over 800 points, with automakers, tech, and agriculture hit hardest. Companies reliant on global supply chains saw their stocks tumble. At the Port of Los Angeles, logistics firms are already rerouting shipments to Vancouver. For American workers, this means fewer jobs at ports, in trucking, and in warehouses. Consumers will soon feel it too. Analysts project the average U.S. family could pay $2,000 more per year as prices rise. Meanwhile, Canada's dollar surged and its stock market gained, especially in resources and logistics. Canadian officials see opportunity, but warn of challenges ahead. The economic ground isn't just shaking, it's tilting north. The fallout is real, and it's just beginning. The fallout isn't just economic, it's political and social. 7 close allies rebuking the U.S. is a diplomatic shock, signaling eroding trust in American leadership. Strong trade ties underpin military and intelligence alliances. As partners pivot to Canada, strategic alignments may shift too. NATO officials warn that economic unreliability could spill over into security doubts. Domestically, the Fair Trade First Act was meant to revive manufacturing, but if it leads to job losses and higher prices, public support could evaporate. The policy risks deepening polarization, pitting regions and industries against each other. For many Americans, farmers, exporters, small business owners, this isn't theory, it's a threat to their livelihoods. The promise of bringing jobs back may ring hollow if it costs more jobs elsewhere. The social fabric, already strained, faces a new test. America's global standing and its unity at home are both on the line. In Canada, the mood is optimistic but measured. Prime Minister Trudeau emphasized Canada's commitment to free and fair trade, avoiding direct criticism of the U.S. industry leaders see a pivotal moment, urging investment in infrastructure to handle the surge in trade. Sectors like clean energy, critical minerals, and agri-food are poised for growth. But challenges loom. Ports are near capacity, and a sudden influx could strain logistics and risk inflation. Canadian officials stress the need for sustainable partnerships, not just being a detour around U.S. policy. They're also careful not to alienate their largest trading partner, the U.S. It's about adding new partners, not choosing sides, one official said. Canada is walking a diplomatic tightrope as opportunity knocks. To gain deeper insight into the shifting landscape of global trade, we reached out to Dr. Evelyn Reed, a renowned international trade expert and senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. With decades of experience analyzing global markets, Dr. Reed offers a unique perspective on the forces reshaping commerce today. Dr. Reed describes the current moment as nothing short of a paradigm shift. For much of the last century, the United States sat at the center of global trade, setting the rules and standards. But now, after years of gradual change, the world is moving decisively toward a multipolar system. One where economic power is distributed among several major players, not just one. According to Dr. Reed, the recently enacted Fair Trade First Act is a clear example of how U.S. policymakers may have misread the evolving global landscape. The act was built on the assumption that the U.S. market would always be indispensable to the rest of the world. and that other nations would have no choice but to comply with American terms. However, as Dr. Reed points out, the reality is quite different. The European Union, the Indo-Pacific Bloc, and Canada have all been busy forging new trade agreements, creating robust alternatives to US-centered commerce. These countries anticipated shifts in US policy and prepared their own networks, ensuring they wouldn't be left isolated. The long-term risk for the United States goes far beyond immediate economic pain, such as job losses or declining exports. Dr. Reed warns that America faces a deeper strategic loss: the gradual dismantling of the rules-based international system that it once led and championed. This could erode US influence for generations. Yet Dr. Reed also sees a potential silver lining. She believes this moment of crisis could force a much-needed bipartisan rethink of US trade policy. Instead of focusing on short-term political wins, leaders might finally prioritize long-term engagement and cooperation, rebuilding trust with global partners. The world has demonstrated that it can adapt and route around US protectionism. Trade flows are being redirected, and new alliances are forming, showing that global commerce is more resilient and flexible than ever before. The critical question now is whether America will make the effort to rebuild the diplomatic and economic bridges it has burned. Will it choose to re-engage with the world, or continue down a path of isolation? The answer to this question will ultimately shape the next era of global commerce, determining not just who leads, but how the world trades, collaborates, and grows together. The United States now stands at a crossroads. It must decide if it wants to reclaim its leadership role in the global economy, or risk being left behind as new powers rise. The stakes are nothing less than generational, affecting workers, businesses, and families for decades to come. In this new era, change is no longer a distant possibility, it is a necessity. The choices made today will define the future of global commerce for years ahead. September 15, 2025, marks a turning point in global trade. 7 major economies have pivoted from the US to Canada, redrawing the economic map. The Fair Trade First Act triggered this, isolating America and boosting Canada's prospects. The fallout disrupted supply chains, higher prices, and diplomatic isolation for the US for Canada. It's a moment of opportunity and challenge. The world is watching Washington's next move: double down or rebuild alliances. The future of global trade and America's place in it is being decided now. We'll keep following every development. Good night.